Hello everyone and welcome to Inside Healthcare. We're so excited. This program marks our 12th year of Inside Healthcare. And we have a special welcome to our newest viewers watching us in Minneapolis on Minneapolis Television. Welcome everyone. We begin this program with a special look at mental illness. Actress Carrie Fisher spoke openly about living with bipolar disorder and addiction. Just a few weeks ago, before her death, Carrie Fisher was still bringing awareness to mental illness, publishing an advice column in The Guardian. Here in the Twin Cities, a new mental illness anti-stigma campaign was just launched. It's called Our Hopes, and it's aimed at destigmatizing mental illness.
People judge you by your illness. They think that defines you.
A lot of people back off when they find out you have a mental illness.
They think they might have done criminal activities.
Well, I think stigma comes about because of ignorance.
I always had stigma as somebody, oh, that girl, I don't want to be near her. They judge. It's judgments.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home.
When we talk about mental illness, people get nervous, and we'll giggle, we'll make jokes about it, but we don't engage with the topic in a serious way.
It makes you feel embarrassed, you're ashamed. They belittle you, and it's just an uneasy, unhappy situation.
When somebody knows that you have one, they seem to center on what you can't do rather than what you can do.
Many people think that when somebody says they are mentally ill, they take a step back and think that you're a bad person.
And I always had hurt feelings. My feelings were always hurt.
People with mental illness are just as normal as anybody else. They just have to deal with something, in their lives.
I've been able to work the last 27 years by staying on my medication.
The thing with African American families is the shame. They don't want to admit sometimes that something is wrong.
Kind of an outcast out of the family. Although family also, and then in turn, family is very helpful. Family is very important to Native American.
I think it's wrong to stigmatize people that have mental illness.
There are a whole host of attitudes and values we will push onto that person. We may assume they're dangerous, or that they're on drugs, or that they're not smart. There are all sorts of things, values that we put on folks who live with mental illness that I don't think are fair.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
He said, "What's going on with you today?" And I said, "Well, I'm just having a rough day." He said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, I have schizophrenia, and I'm just really struggling today." And he said, he said, well, I thought people with schizophrenia went to schoolyards and shot up the schoolyard. And I just couldn't believe he had said that. It just really hurt.
It's not our fault that we are mentally ill. Something can be done for it. We can take medications, for example. We are not bad people.
It's challenging for anybody, but it's really challenging when you're raising children. And I raised 2 boys. I kind of put them through the ringer with this.
People are kind and patient, and it's a community, and that's something we need more of, not less of. Places where people feel like they belong and their voices matter.
But I think being able to enter into a dialogue as a community and talk about really, what is mental illness? I mean, when 1 out of every 4 of us has it, it's really a deception to think that it's something other, and that it's not us. And the reality is it is us.
The thing that I love about my music and what it does for people is that I can play it, and because it's instrumental, it can speak to people in whatever mood they're in. So I can play my music and people can have different stories and different reactions and different memories.
Stigma-free, I guess, would be nice.
You need to know the person first.
It's a disease, and it's manageable. Just give us a chance.
Well, right now I work with homeless youth, and probably a good chunk of that percentage have mental illness, and I've been able to give back.
It is possible to be successful even with a mental illness. That a lot of people have gone on to do great things.
Take a good look at yourself. Oh, yeah. And turn. Oh, very nice. Check that smooth backside one more time. No, really. Check it. Do you see any changing or suspicious spots? It's your skin, and it's important. If you're a man over 50, you're in the group most likely to develop skin cancer, including melanoma, the cancer that kills 1 person every hour. When detected early, skin cancer is highly treatable. Check yourself out. And find someone else to help. Learn more about what to look for at spotskincancer.org. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
We're back now with Dr. Carolyn McLean with the Urgency Room. Glad to have you back with us. Always good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to be talking about winter safety. It's that time of year. What are you seeing in the Urgency Room?
So the most common thing that happens in the winter is when it gets icy, people slip and fall. And when do you slip and fall? Most people fall right away. So right when they get out of their car or right when they walk out of their house. And I can't tell you how many people I see in the emergency room that break their arms from you take your step out of the car and you're just stepping out and you get your other foot and it goes whoop and down you go. And it's always right out of the car. Or I had this, it was Sunday and it was icy and this woman wanted to just take a few steps outside to see if they should go to church. And so she took a few steps out, boom, both wrists broken. And I was like, well, I guess that's a no for church today.
Yeah. I mean, I have to confess, I walk indoors a couple times a week, and the other day I canceled walking because it was going to be icy just driving there and just maybe walking across the parking lot to get into the building. So I'm just very cautious about all of that since I injured my arm 4 years ago slipping on the ice. So.
Yeah, and you don't realize how much of an impact that has, especially if you break one of your ankles, because if you break your right ankle, you can't drive. And so, and your left ankle, it's not so easy to drive either. Yeah. But if you can't drive, you're really helpless. You can't get to work, you know. I mean, you could Uber, but it's not that easy.
So the patients that you're seeing, is it falling into a certain age group or population, or is it across the whole field of people?
You know, it tends to be people between 25 and 65, not older, because as you get older, you become very careful. But when you're younger, you're hopping out of your car, you're rushing to work, you're late, and you're just not thinking.
And as we learned from covering Urgency Room, that you have X-ray machines and things like that right there at the facility, that easy diagnosed, you can treat them right there. And
yeah. So we do see a lot of breaks at this time of year, but it's just it's 6 weeks after you break a arm before you can start using it again.
And rehab is months.
It's a long time. Yeah. And just think about, like, you break your right arm, you can't use your cell phone, you can't, there's a lot of things that you don't think about.
And you're used to having them both, yeah.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I am an ER doctor, so I see some really awful things, and I think, well, at least you just broke your arm. But if I broke my arm, I'd be very upset.
Yeah.
So
besides fractures and things like that, what other things are you seeing in the emergency room? I mean, we've had some really bitter cold temps in the last few weeks and stuff. Sub-zero.
So one other thing that, and it was just the holidays, so one thing that I saw a lot of was parents going out ice skating or sledding with their kids, and the parents getting injured.
Oh.
Because you might make your kid wear a helmet to go ice skating, but you don't even have one because you hardly ever go ice skating. So you go out, boom, and when you fall on the ice and you hit your head, it's really dangerous. So you should come into the urgency room right away because you can have bleeding in your brain or at least a severe concussion. And I saw a number of parents that their kids were very well protected and they weren't.
I don't have very many injuries, but I just slipped on the ice a few years ago too, like letting the dog out, and it was one of those where my feet just went under, hit the back of my head, and I had a concussion just like that.
And you fall so fast because of the momentum from the ice that people don't put their hands out.
I was surprised by that.
They just hit their head. And a lot of people get back injuries that way as well. The other injury that happens that before I went into medicine is surprising to me is people, when they're sledding, will break their backs a lot.
Really?
And why is it? Because you go over a jump and you land, and that compression of your spine when you land on your bottom can break your back. And I see that frequently. I think, and you know, jumps are great. It's fun to go sledding, but you just make sure you're well padded and be careful.
Wow, what other advice and tips do you have for our viewers about winter safety?
I would recommend, when I think about how to get out of the car or walk, for women, walk like you're in heels, even when you're not, because you're so much more careful. If you think about it like that, you may walk slower and take easier steps.
Good tip.
But
don't wear the heels.
Don't wear the heels, but don't wear the heels, yeah. Yeah.
And then have you seen like frostbite or exposure kind of
We've
things?
we've seen a little bit of frostbite. One of the biggest times where people get frostbite is when they're out at night and they drink or use illicit substances, and you don't think about putting your mittens on, and you're out too long. So that happens frequently. So if you are planning to go out and have a fun night on a Saturday night, make sure you bring your mittens. You could even put the clip-ons. It's not so cool at the bar, but you can do it.
It doesn't matter how old you are, but you won't be so cool if all of a sudden you have to get your nose taken off because you've gotten frostbite on there or something. Yeah.
Exactly.
Final advice for our viewers on staying safe throughout the whole winter, however long that lasts here in the Twin Cities and Upper Midwest.
Well, it is snowing today, so one thing I do recommend if you go out shoveling and you have any chest pain or shortness of breath,
good advice.
Come in immediately to the urgency room to get checked out, because shoveling it's usually people that don't normally exercise. You have to go out there and do it, and that could be a sign that your heart needs to be evaluated. So don't ignore it, especially if it goes away after you're done shoveling. People think, oh, then I'm better. It's a good sign. It's a warning. Come in and get it checked out.
And if you're a woman, don't just ignore it either.
Don't just ignore it, no.
We're probably the last ones to take care of ourselves sometimes. And then urgency room, you're at 3 locations around the Twin Cities?
Yeah, so we're in Vadnais Heights, Woodbury, and Eagan, and we take care of anything from stroke to strep throat.
All right. Great advice as always. Always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks, Jody.
Thanks, Dr. McLean. Still ahead, a local mom wants to warn parents and families about a growing epidemic that took the life of her son. Stay with us, everyone.
Maybe he's really focused.
Hey, Michael. Michael. Maybe he likes spinning the wheels.
Maybe he just loves trucks.
Maybe he's just being a boy.
Preoccupation with objects is one early sign of autism. Learn the others today. The sooner it's diagnosed, the better.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh.
It only takes a moment to make a moment.
Cheers.
Take time to be a dad today.
Devastated by the death of her son, a local mom, Lori Lewis, is now warning other families about the addiction of heroin and opiates. She was responsible this month for bringing to local theaters a new documentary about how one community came together to fight the heroin and opiate epidemic. Here's a preview of Generation Found.
I started using when I was in 7th grade.
At the age of 12, I started smoking marijuana.
I was using every day. The last 3 years of my use, I was shooting heroin.
My mom, she was addicted to powder cocaine, and she committed suicide.
A lot of times I feel like adolescents get written off.
Nothing had tackled the issue of where do these teenagers have to go.
It was so hard to try to figure out how much of this is the teenage behavior and how much of this is a problem.
We started asking questions like, where do you feel the lowest self-esteem? School. Where do you have the most access to drugs? School.
When we look at the Just Say No message, we can't really rely on that as an intervention because it's a much bigger problem than that.
My husband pretty much shut down.
He said, close his bedroom door and do not open it. I cannot look in there.
For my son's birthday this year, I got him flowers and a balloon, and I took those out and I put them on his grave.
Every now and then a city will have this experience. It almost sort of feels like an epidemic. And all of a sudden the community kind of wakes up. Instead of ignoring the problem, we really start looking at it. And it's painful to see. I think in Houston, part of how we were able to create this beautiful continuum of care is because we just got really, really tired of watching kids die.
When I first heard of Archway, I was like, there's no way there's a school full of sober teenagers.
I would like to see it change from a look of this is just a young person to what it really is. It's our future. Won't be any legacy if we don't have anybody to carry it on.
Give them the courage to embrace who they are. They may be afraid of what comes next or confused about what direction to go. But remind them that they are surrounded by a community of recovery that will help them walk through the fear.
Just because I've not become addicted to it don't mean I don't know about it. I lived it. I'm living it.
We're not gonna be able to save them all. But boy, if we could just do more. Instead of being Generation Lost and Generation X and all this other stuff we call them, man, Generation 5.
And Lori Lewis is back with us. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
What a powerful, I just seen the trailer, you know, just such a powerful documentary. Why was this important for you to bring it to the local community for other families and the community to see?
I think it's important for parents, grandparents, siblings, friends to understand that opiates and heroin are in our community. You may not see it, but it's here. And what we wanted to do is bring this movie here and let people know that it's, one, okay to talk about it, you know, and try and help break the stigma. And two, show people that there are people actively working on this to help our adolescent and young adults. And those are the main reasons.
And we mentioned that because of the loss of your son is what prompted you to get involved in this. I think we mentioned it last time you were on here a couple of years ago, how difficult that must be, but how that gives you the courage to continue this fight to help other families in the community at large.
It does, and I honestly couldn't do this without his spirit and his strength and his will. But that's why I do it, is because I continue to fight the fight that he lost. And 3.5 years ago, we did not have the resources. And that's my most important message I want to get out is don't go through this alone and fight alone. You as a parent, or not even a parent, a grandmother or a friend, or you need support to help your loved one or friend through this too. And you need tools, and you need to know how to deal with it. I wish so much we would have had that back then. I think things would have been a little bit different in the way we handled things too. So that's most important, is talk about it. You can't get help if you don't talk about it and you don't know the resources that are there, and there's so many now.
What are some of those resources available in Washington County in particular?
Sure. Well, right now what we're trying to do is hold groups for peer recovery for parents and adolescents. And when I say all peer recovery, that means me as a parent. I am not addicted to a substance, but we all deal with it. We're also trying to get naloxone trainings into the community, and any type of resource we can. If you go online and just even Google in your area support groups for addiction, they have it all broke down into parents, adolescents, adults. Minnesota Recovery Connection, I'm volunteering with them right now. Steve Rumler Hope Foundation is another place to go for resources. So there are many groups out there. I can be a contact for anyone, to help. When somebody reaches out when they're in that moment of crisis, you have a few moments to grab them and help them. And we just want people to know that there are places.
And it seemed like in the documentary, too, that they're tackling it at the schools where a lot of this may start for the young people in particular.
Yes, and the most important thing that I got out of watching Generation Found was the support that those students said they got from each other, not from adults, not from their parents, from each other. So it's very important. And about 10 years ago, they started closing down sober schools in our area, and now you're starting to see them emerge again. And that's very important. And they just need whatever support. And a lot of times it starts in, middle school and high school. There's the peer pressure alone.
And you were saying also, too, this isn't isolated just to young teens and young adults. It is also adults, older adults, seniors that have these addictions as well.
Yes, from 8 to 98, we see it through. Addiction does not discriminate. And when you were mentioning the older adults, having a surgery, coming out of surgery, becoming addicted, having your doctor cut you off of your opioids instead of weaning you off. There's grandmas out on the street that are looking for, because they're physically and mentally dependent on it. And so we need to do a better job of that too, is how we wean people off, after a major surgery.
You talked about your son's spirit. What would he think about what you're doing?
I think he's with me and helping me do this, which took me a long time to get there, but I think he would say, thank you, Mom, for continuing, because this is not what he wanted.
Well, final word for our viewers.
Again, I just can't stress enough to reach out for support. That's easier said than done, but there are many groups of parents out there that have kids in active addiction and are trying to be advocates, and people that have lost their sons that, or daughters, or even grandchildren that are there to support you and help you.
Well, Lori, thanks for coming back. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate that. Thanks. And we'd like to thank you for joining us again. Hope you can join us next time on Inside Healthcare. We'll see you then, everyone.